Hello and welcome to my live stream. I'll wait a few seconds as people join. Right, hello and welcome to the Visibility Myth, why introverted leaders stay overlooked and 3 things that can actually change it. So before I begin and whilst I'm waiting for people to join, please share and in the comments and let me know which part of the world that you are joining me from today. I always like to know where people are joining from. So do share with me. We usually get people from all over joining. So let me know where you're joining me from today. I'm glad to have you here online with me. And I'll just give it a few more seconds and then I will get going. Right, I'm going to get going. So as you come on, and even if you're watching this on replay, because I do come back and check the comments, so do let me know where in the world that you're joining from. And I like to keep the session interactive, so do share your comments, your thoughts. I will keep an eye on the comments. If you've got questions, ask them in the comments, and I will also give an opportunity for questions at the end. When I do workshops, talks, webinars on things around visibility, self-promotion for introverted leaders, personal branding as well. Hello, girl Shanara from London. It's great to have you here. Or Rumi, it's great to have you here. Yes, when I do sessions on visibility, self-promotion, personal branding for introverted leaders, there's often a discussion because people will raise that a lot of the things that are required for this doesn't come naturally to them. And they talk about some of the things that are associated with visibility and self-promotion as being uncomfortable. And we'll have a conversation about, in an ideal world, all leaders would identify talent for what it is, regardless of whether it's vocal, whether it's quiet, whether it's just getting on, doing an excellent job, but not making a lot of noise about it. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world. And so, and also the way that visibility has been portrayed has, I think, been, there's a misconception about what that actually means. And the research shows that extroverts get more opportunities in the workplace because their performance is more visible. They're more likely to talk about their successes, their achievements, what they're working on. And so people get to know about it. And then when opportunities come about, they're the ones that get considered. And so most organizations tell introverted leaders to be more visible. But the data tells a different story. And so through this live session, what I want to do is reframe visibility as a structural and cultural issue, not an individual deficit. So it's not the individual leaders that are the issue. A lot of it is to do with the structures and the cultural issues that are at play here. And so I'll be giving introverted leaders 3 practical shifts that you can act on immediately. And also I'll be speaking to introverted senior leaders who are tired of being told to become someone else. If you're introverted and you're tired of being told, oh, you've got to be someone else if you're going to be more visible, you've got to be more out there, you've got to be more vocal, this will speak to you. And if you are a leader in an organization who some of your best talent is leaving or you're losing because you're measuring the wrong things when it comes to visibility. So I have an assessment that I have on my website, a free assessment for introverted women who are senior leaders. It's the Confidence, Influence and Impact Assessment. And I've had over 1,800 respondents complete it. And in response to the statement, I am a visible leader, I am seen, I am heard, and I stand out, 75% rated themselves a 6 out of 10 or below for visibility. And the statement was, I am a visible leader, I am seen, I am heard, and I stand out. Now, I think that is a significant number of people that have completed this assessment. As I've said, over 1,800 people have completed it, and 75% rating themselves a 6 out of 10 or below for visibility. Now, in an ideal world, people would feel confident about being visible, that they are seen, that they are heard, and that they stand out. And that would be 9, 10, even an 8 maybe. So it shows that something is wrong. And so what is wrong, as I've said, is often the structural and cultural challenges. So it's not a confidence one, it's a systemic one, and I'll explain why. And so when it comes to visibility, what organizations are often measuring when they look at visibility are who's speaking up in meetings, who's speaking up, who's got that presence, who's networking, who's being known by the right people. And when we define visibility in that way, that leans more to people who are extroverted, because it measures style over substance. Extroverted people tend, and I don't want to put people in boxes, tend to be more comfortable at things that require that outward appearance, that outward sociability, whereas introverts are not necessarily bothered about being in the spotlight. And again, I don't want to put people in boxes, but that's what the research shows. That's what my research shows. That's what shows up time and time again in my coaching. Introverts are typically not bothered about being in the spotlight. But what my research shows is that introverted leaders, they're frequently delivering strong results and they're still being overlooked. And it's not because they lack impact, it's because their impact isn't legible in the dominant cultures. And the cost of this to organizations is that they're not utilizing their talent, all of their talent, and they're losing. When I do my research, when I've done various research over the years regarding introverted leaders, particularly introverted women, and they will often leave an organization because of these sorts of challenges. And so to me, it's a measurement problem in how organizations are measuring visibility. And so visibility is not about being louder. It's about being known for the right things in the right spaces and in ways that are sustainable for who you are. And so it's not about you putting on an extroverted persona, thinking that you have to act extroverted. It's about you being yourself, showing up as yourself, but being known for the right things in the right spaces, and doing it in ways which are sustainable for you. And that's what this session is basically about. And so for those of you who are leaders in an organization, who have introverted leaders on your team, introverted team members, if your frameworks for measuring high potential are based on who are the more vocal, who are the ones that speak loudest, you're not measuring your potential, you're measuring extroversion in my eyes. And so it's about you spotting the talent in everybody, not just those who are vocal about it. And so I'm going to share 3 things that you can do as an individual and as an organization to shift things. And so the first one is around rather than performing visibility, to building strategic presence. And that's what I like to call visibility, as it's about strategic presence. And recently I did a LinkedIn post talking about visibility and self-promotion. And someone who commented on it said that it's strategic communication. And that's what it is. It's about communicating the difference that you're making, letting people see that you are making a difference, you are making an impact. Many introverted leaders have followed the be more visible advice, and they found it exhausting, and it's unsustainable, or it's ineffective because they're not being their authentic self, and they're performing a version of visibility that doesn't fit them. And that shows when you put on an extroverted persona. The research shows that there are short-term benefits, but over the long term, and those short-term benefits in this particular study that I'm thinking of, they only lasted for 15 minutes. In the long term, it's exhausting, and it gradually chips away at your self-confidence and self-belief. It's not sustainable. And when you are authentic, that shows authenticity is visible, but also so is inauthenticity. When you're inauthentic, people can tell. And a good example I use often when I'm doing my workshops, my talks and so forth, is the former UK Prime Minister, Theresa May. In her last party political broadcast, she ran onto the stage, not broadcast conference, sorry. She ran onto the stage dancing to ABBA's Dancing Queen. I don't know if any of you saw that. And she just looked so awkward and inauthentic. Now, I don't know who had advised her to do that. Her advisors had said, oh, she needs to be more visible. She needs to act more out there, more sociable. But it just looked so inauthentic, and I cringed when I saw it. And like I said, the effects of showing up as inauthentically does take its toll. So what does strategic presence look like, or what could it look like? So it's not about being everywhere. It's about being in the right places and thinking about where are those places that you need to be seen. So identify 2 or 3 spaces. It could be particular meetings, it could be individuals, or it could be relationships where your visibility has the highest leverage. And the way that some of my clients have done this are having one-to-one meetings with people who are more senior than them. So one particular client set up quarterly meetings with her line manager to make sure that her team are delivering to what they expected, and just to build and nurture that relationship. And that helped her considerably. So it can be something as simple as that. So when you're in meetings or you're in situations where, there's a lot of riding on it, or high stake situations, rather than thinking that you've got to speak to lots of different people or talk a lot, think about making one meaningful contribution that matters more than just making a lot of noise. And so remember, presence, it's not about volume, it's about intentionality and being intentional. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to be in every room. You don't need to be in every space. You don't need to be known by every single person. It's about being known somewhere that counts, and thinking about where that matters. And if you are an employer or leading teams of introverts, then think about what you're actually rewarding. What is it that you are actually rewarding? Is it that you're rewarding those who are more vocal, those who speak the most? Because if you are, you're not measuring potential, as I said, that's measuring extroversion. The second thing that you can do, or the second shift, if you want to call it, is rather than waiting to be recognized, to making your impact legible and making it seen. There's a thing called tiara syndrome, and that's a phenomenon where people think that their work will speak for itself. And as I mentioned earlier, in an ideal world, talent would be spotted regardless of whether it's vocal or not. But we don't live in an ideal world. And so introverted leaders often have that belief that their work, their good work, should speak for itself, and don't like drawing attention to themselves because it feels uncomfortable. And like I've said, they don't particularly or typically like being in the spotlight. But whilst having that belief is understandable, it's costing many introverted leaders their careers, their progression, their influence, and their impact. Because in many organizations, work that, or results or work that isn't talked about, that isn't visible, doesn't get recognized correctly or even at all. And so it's about making your impact seen. So talk about your work, connect what you've done to the outcome. So don't just talk about, oh, we've achieved this, or not just the things that you've done. And this is something that I often see clients who've come to me for coaching because they've been unsuccessful at promotion, where they've let themselves down. They've talked a lot about the we did this or we achieved that, but they haven't connected the dots to the impact and the role that they played. The other thing is finding people who will spotlight you, people who are going to speak about you when you're not in the room. So that could be having sponsors, allies, and connecting with those people who could be sponsors or allies. You may have heard me talk on previous live sessions about a client who had been acting up into a role, and a new CEO started, and the word on the street, so to speak, or people were talking to her about that she wouldn't be considered for the substantial role. She'd never met the CEO. And so what we did is we developed a strategic visibility plan. And part of that included her getting sponsors through senior stakeholders from organizations that they worked with. And that's what she did. She developed and nurtured her relationship with the CEOs at these stakeholder organizations, provided them, with an excellent service. And then one day she was in the lift and the CEO came in, and they got talking. And the CEO mentioned to her that they'd just come out of a meeting with their counterpart CEO in one of the stakeholder organizations, who was talking about some of the things that she delivered, my client had delivered for them, and how she'd done an excellent job. That made her visible to the CEO, who previously didn't know her. And when it came to the substantive role being filled, she was successful. She got it on merit, but it helped her coming under the radar of the CEO, and for the CEO to see that how highly their stakeholder organizations were speaking of her. And so remember that when you're making yourself visible, and rather than thinking about it as self-promotion or feeling uncomfortable, remember it's communication, it's strategic communication. And reframing it in this way makes it feel less uncomfortable, because if you don't tell the story of the impact that you're having, no one will. Or someone might, but it might not get heard by the right people or in the right way. So remember that. Find those individual places that you can make yourself more known for, nurture and develop those relationships as well. And so if you're an employer leading teams of introverts, then don't just wait for them to make their impact visible. Develop those relationships with your team members and know what they're working on, what they're doing. Create those spaces where their contributions can get named and they get the attribution and recognition for it. And be a sponsor for all of your good talent, whether they're vocal, whether they're not. And that's not showing favoritism or giving anyone special treatment. That's about good leadership. You recognize the talent and you exalt it. So don't just wait for, or don't just go for those who are more visible. And so the other thing that I would like to say in terms of the shift is knowing when you need to adapt and when it's the culture that needs to adapt. So there are situations where, and this applies to all leaders, whether you're introverted or whether you're extroverted. There's a comment here from Jen. She's saying, this is great. Thank you, Jen. So all leaders need to be able to adapt their style and in certain situations. So this doesn't just apply to introverts, it applies to extroverts as well. And it's about being able to read the room and knowing how to adapt your style for different audiences. And that is perfectly okay, because you can do that in ways where you're still showing up as yourself and which still feel authentic. But then there's the way of just contorting your identity and becoming someone fundamentally different to who you really are in order to be accepted. And to me, that is where the problem lies, where you don't feel that you can be your authentic self, or you don't feel that you will be accepted as yourself. That to me is the cultural problem. And that's when the culture needs to adapt. And introverted leaders are often asked to do the latter. Oh, be more vocal, be more visible. But what they're being asked to do is to be someone that they're not. And so how can you tell the difference? You can tell this difference by asking yourself, if I have to make this adjustment, is it sustainable? Is it depleting my energy every single time I do it? Or does it become natural? Is it about communicating more effectively or performing a style that isn't yours? And if you find that you're having to change who you are in order to be accepted or in order to fit in, if the organization is asking you to lose yourself and lose who you are to be someone else, then that is very telling, because you're not the problem that needs to be fixed. Part of leading at a senior level is knowing which expectations are worth meeting, knowing which battles to fight. And I don't like to use that term, battles to fight, but I'll use it because people understand what it means. It's knowing which ones are worth questioning, and understanding the environment, the culture that you are in, as to whether that is the right fit for you, if you are constantly being asked to be someone that you're not, if you constantly feel that you can't show up as yourself. And for those of you who employ introverted leaders or lead introverted leaders, if everyone of your team members who are introverted are being asked to adapt, and none of the culture is being asked to, I often hear, and this happened to me as well when I was a leader in an organization, you need to speak up more, is said to the introverted leaders, whereas you never hear people say to the extroverts, you need to be a bit more quiet. And when it comes to inclusion at a senior level, it's not about getting people to fit, it's about building those cultures, building those environments that people think it's worth fitting into. And so if you are somebody who is either an employer or you're leading teams of introverted leaders or introverts themselves, I want you to reflect on this and think about whether your culture, whether your environment is measuring visibility based on the volume, based on the noise, based on how much that person speaks up, and to reflect on what I've shared here today, because the data that I shared earlier, about 75% of introverted women who are senior leaders feeling or rating themselves a 6 or below out of 10 in terms of visibility, is clearly a signal that there is something wrong with the cultures that they work in. And so what you can do is you can audit your visibility metrics. What are you actually measuring when you assess leadership potential, or executive presence or readiness for the next level? And if when you do these audits, it's showing that you're measuring extroverted behavior, then you have a measurement problem. And also, if you're seeing that your introverted senior leaders are constantly code switching and putting on a performance in order to be seen, find out what it's actually costing them. And also look at what it's costing you when they leave because they're not being seen and they're not being heard. So that about wraps up what I have to share. So I will answer. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. If anyone's got any questions, do share in the comments. Got King Property Dealer here. Hi. Saying hi, everyone. Hello to you too. Thanks for joining. So any questions? And whilst I'm waiting for questions to come through, have any of you that are online ever been told you need to be more visible without actually being told what that means? And if anybody's watching this on replay, and if you've got questions, then do share them in the comments, because I will come back and check the comments. And whilst I'm waiting to see if there are any comments coming through, in my next edition of my Quietly Visible LinkedIn newsletter, I'm going to be going deeper into the director to executive transition. And I'll put the link to that in the comments. If you're not subscribed to it, then please do subscribe to it. It will be next week. It will either be published on Thursday or Friday. So there's a link to the newsletter, LinkedIn newsletter. And if this session resonates with you, if what I've shared resonates with you, and you want to explore what this looks like specifically for you, in terms of you being visible, then, and how you can do that authentically, then share, book a call with me. If you go to my profile, there is a link where you can book a call with me. And likewise, if you are an employer or have leaders that you want to be able to better support, you want to change the culture of your organization so that it is reflecting the diversity of the talent and the diversity of personality styles, then do reach out to me as well. So if there are no questions, then I'll say thank you to everybody that's either online now or that's going to watch on the replay. Like I said, if you've got any comments, or even if you've got something that you want to ask, but you don't want to ask it openly on here, then send me a DM, because I will respond. So thank you, everybody, and bye.